Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you're joining. My name is Phillip Ayazika. I'm based in Kampala, Uganda. I work with Pollicy, one of the co-organizers of this workshop as the director of programs. Today, I'm going to be speaking to you about decolonizing the information ecosystem with AI. As an organization, we've visioned what decolonization looks like, but also we've been doing quite a lot of research to visibilize, for example, women in AI. We did the three-part series that I'll talk about later on to understand which women are contributing to the AI ecosystem, what are some of the challenges that they're facing, but also that invisibility or that low participation of women in the AI ecosystem. How does that then affect the many policies, the practices when it comes to AI on the continent? So what are the effects of that? Because when you talk about decolonization, and of course later on I'm also going to speak to us about the Afrofeminist approach to AI, we see that it's important to center the experiences of women, especially African women, but also different populations that have different experiences. Now, many of you might ask why it's a man talking about issues of feminism and women. I've been doing programming around feminists and gender issues for quite some time. So I'm not an expert, but I'm an interested party that has understood the importance of inclusion, especially of women in the tech ecosystem and the benefits that it can bring. And I hope that you can journey with me today as we explore that together. I'm going to start with sub-module one on decolonizing information ecosystems with AI. And of course, the other module, as we will get into it, will also build onto this to speak about the Afrofeminist approach to AI. Now, the desired outcomes of this session is I hope that we can all understand the historical context of colonial narratives in journalism and their impact on African societies. Now, whereas my context might not directly speak to journalism alone, it will broadly speak to the colonial aspect of narratives reading across the continent and how these have continued to shape and how some of these systemic issues continue resurfacing even in digital spaces. We'll also learn how AI can support the creation of counter narratives that center African perspectives and experiences. And lastly, we'll also explore examples of AI tools designed to preserve and promote African languages and storytelling. And I hope that all of us can contribute to this last outcome and tell us some of the startups, some of the people. I have a few, but I hope that we can also understand from your region who are some of the people that are working towards promoting African languages and storytelling, especially in digital spaces, because we continue to see that the internet is in English, and that speaks to a lot of exclusion, seeing that many of us in Africa still have majority of our populations offline, but even those that are online, many of them can't even speak English. So why is the internet still in English alone? So I would want to hear some of you who have examples of, tools and organizations that are working towards decolonizing the internet and including more languages. Now, I start with a quote from Sabe Losethu Mlambi, who is the founder of Bala, who has worked so much around decolonization of AI, who says that AI has historically been dominated by groups that reinforce the same biases that are already present in society. Now, think about this. I want us all to look at this quote and digest it, because this quote defines what decolonization is about, really. It goes ahead to say the goal is to move away from that, that dominance towards capturing a more realistic view of the world. We need to move away from looking at the world as a monoculture, but also recognizing that the world is diverse. There's more languages, there's more cultures, there's more practices, and all these practices should inform AI development, deployment, and usage. So that's pretty much what it speaks about. So when they say AI has historically been dominated by groups that reinforce the same biases, it speaks to the fact that most of the AI tools that we use, most of the LLMs that are built from the global north, from Silicon Valley and somewhere else, by these big tech companies. And of course, it is white people, white male people. And that means that since they're the ones that build some of these products and systems, the biases that they hold, which of course we can't blame them for because some of these things are historical, the biases that they hold are also passed on into some of these AI systems that they build, right? I hope that makes sense. So when we talk about decolonization of AI, we're trying to say, okay, there's more to this. It's not just one culture. It's not just a few languages. It's not just a few data sets that should inform some of these systems, but we should work towards AI that is as inclusive and diverse and data sets that are as diverse as possible. So I wanted us to start with this quote for us to think about. But let's talk about the systemic bias loop, right? When you talk about bias in AI, when you talk about unfair AI, when you talk about all these things that bring about exclusion, where does it exactly come from? So I know we're talking about emerging technologies and AI and etc., but some of these things are even historical. Some of these things are systemic. So there's just a few things that I want us to point ourselves to. After independence, after many of African nations got independence, foreign multinational countries continue to dominate African economies through resource extraction and resale, which excluded Africans, a lot of Africans, from value creation and adding value to some of these processes, leaving economies reliant on unskilled labor, right? Now, this translates into probably why we even see that most of the people, the engineers and all these things that are building some of these tools, whereas we've done quite a lot of work to get more African people into these spaces to contribute to some of these products development. Majority of our labor force remains unskilled and are not even able to contribute to some of these technology advancements as they happen, leave alone even industrialization and a lot of other spaces. It's because of the dominance element that has been carried on even from the days of the of colonial. And most of the people refer to this concept as neocolonialism. Now, this dominance is still going on strong in the global south today, including Africa here, creating an ongoing reliance on their products, on the products of the global north, and internet infrastructure, where tech giants make it almost impossible for people, especially from the global south, to shape their own futures and terms. That's why most of our work then focuses on advocacy to include more languages, etc. Yet these things should be done by design. I mean, anyone that is building a product that is as inclusive and is going to work for the people should pay attention to saying, okay, I'm building this product, but how can I include more experiences into this product? How can I use data that is inclusive of the different experiences and realities of the different people that are going to use this product? But we continue to see a lot of products coming out with biased data, with data that doesn't speak to our context, because there is a power relation to that. So there's that dominance still going on. So the other thing is that AI systems don't build and deploy themselves. I think I've talked about this. They come into being through a set of decisions that start with AI designer, which AI designer, I've told you that most of them sometimes are, white people, and their experiences inform the development of some of these systems. They're the ones who identify the problems to solve, but also the funders. Most of the funders that fund of some of these products are from the global north, right? And of course, I'm not trying to say that funders are not working in the global south, but there's more work that needs to be done, especially when it comes to justice, AI justice, right? So they're the ones that determine what problems to be solved. That also decide, they are the ones who decide who gets capital to build and deploy some of these AI systems. So that's also a problem. Now, the producers of the data, have biases that are difficult to remove from the data, as do those who make decisions regarding what data to collect and how to collect it and what to use it for, right? Many of you have heard about the conversation of data that informs some of these products, and a lot of technology products being their biased data that is not as inclusive of experiences of the different people across the globe. Now, I wanted to show you how this bias that we're talking about bias in AI is systematic, that it has come from way back. And it's important that we pay attention to it being a systematic issue. What this means is that it's just not me or as policy, or it's not just space AI. It's just not a government that can do it, but this needs a multi-stakeholder approach. We need content creators on board. We need journalists. We need technical people. We need community organizers. We need language, linguists, people that have majored in languages to come on board. We need technologists. We need funders to come on board to actually find solutions to some of these issues that continue to bring about and the persistence of the biases. Now, the problem, however, lies in the issue that many of us as users, as we use AI, many of us risk burdening these systems with the prejudices and biases that we ourselves still retain. Now, even many of us have, because of the system that we thrive in, have a lot of biases, even against ourselves as people, right? As African people, as people from the global south. And we continue to see that this is the data that we continue to feed some of these AI systems, reinforcing the prejudices and the biases that themselves they already have. So we are reinforcing it and, you know, pushing it further, right? So there's also a way that, or even us as human beings, as people that use some of these AI tools, there's a way that we are contributing to the reinforcement of some of these biases, right? At worst, we even risk creating relationships with them that are akin to a master and a slave. I mean, someone yesterday, I think it was Lois or Tabi that talked about over reliance on AI, you know? Tell me how that at some point is not going to become a problem, and many of us are going to have to become to get into a relationship where it is a master and slave, you know, where you're a slave to your AI tool, right? So there's a way that many of us are contributing to some of these issues that we're trying to work against. So I wanted to first pose that background first to understand. Now there's a scenario here. When you talk about reinforcement of biases, bias in AI, how do we contribute to it? How are some of us contributing to it? So I came up with this case scenario. There's a news portal, an online news portal, which is mainstream news portal that I've named Unique. So Unique news portal uses an AI system. Kingsley, please let me know if I'm rushing, if I'm speaking so fast and some people are struggling to catch me. I'll be happy to slow down, but let me try to slow down. So Unique news portal uses an AI system to suggest topics, prioritize news stories, or even draft articles. This AI system that they use is trained on historical data from the different newsrooms archives, which historical data may reflect a bias towards covering stories centered on urban issues. Which may reflect a bias towards covering stories centered on urban issues, sensationalism, or even male-dominated perspectives, while sidelining stories about rural communities, women, PWDs, and other marginalized communities that we think of, right? And I think someone made us do a test yesterday. I don't remember. I think it was Chiamaka or Lois who told us to go to our WhatsApp AI, Meta AI, and type in news stories, you know, ideas for news stories. Now, many a times for us who may be using, and I'm setting this scenario, you will find yourselves that it is on rare occasions that the AI will recommend something that focuses on the rural areas, or something that is deep, but also what will focus on sensationalism, but also it tends to focus on male-dominated perspectives, while sidelining many of Chiamaka, thank you so much, Anthony, while sidelining many of the other experiences that we as journalists, or even because journalists and content creators, or I'm not even going to use the word journalists and content creators, but as media practitioners, right? Allow me to use that term as I feel like it's encompassing, because many of us contribute to the information ecosystem. Of course, I don't want to get into the technicalities, but I think it's important that we contribute to the information ecosystem, but of course in an ethical manner. So many of us as media practitioners, we have a task to inform the public, right? We have a task to push access to information. Now, if you rely so much on this news Unique portal, like Unique portal is doing, you realize that most of the stories and and ideas that are going to be given to you will in some way be biased, you know, will take a certain direction that focuses on, you know, urban issues like I've mentioned. Now, if Unique News Portal continues to use this AI system, what is the best case scenario? The best case scenario, which is the most common scenario, that's why I'm calling it the best case scenario that is going to happen, is that there's going to be replication of bias, right? So there's going to be, the best case scenario is going to be bias replication. How does this happen? The AI will continue to prioritize stories that reflect existing biases, such as recommending more coverage of political scandals in capital cities, while neglecting grassroots movements or even women issues in rural areas, replicating the prejudices in the data it was trained on, which burdens journalism with the same blind spots it sought to address, right? Because journalism is about addressing some of these blind spots that our communities continue to struggle with, that our culture and our communities as probably African people, there's challenges that we have, and sometimes media has a role to highlight some of these challenges to get solutions for them. But then you find yourself that if you're going to rely on AI alone, there are chances that you're going to have a bias replication and then do the same thing that media is supposed to be working against. So that's a case scenario. The worst case scenario is that you're going to get into a master-slave relationship, where we're going to have journalists and editors relying entirely on the AI to determine what stories are newsworthy, treating its recommendations as absolute. The AI, lacking the context or even ethical reasoning of human journalists, will perpetuate harmful narratives, amplify sensationalism, or marginalize important but underrepresented voices, which creates a dynamic where the AI is a tool of servitude with no capacity to challenge its own flawed programming or systemic biases that it enforces. Now, when we talk about this, it brings back the issue of human in the loop. It is important that as we adopt AI as newsrooms, as content creators, as we use AI, these are perfect tools. These are great tools to amplify our work, to improve the quality of our work, and do a lot of things and help us save on costs. For example, on if you can't afford maybe someone to animate for you something, you could use AI. But it's important that we keep the human in the loop, that you test and review the content that is generated by AI. Otherwise, we risk replicating the same biases that we are talking about and that we have been fighting over and over. So this challenges us as a people, to not even just journalists, but as people, as practitioners, to critically evaluate AI-driven tools that we adopt, right? To ensure that these AI tools empower storytelling and inclusivity rather than entrenching biases or even eroding editorial independence. Now, I'm not going to dwell so much on decolonization. I hope that you get the idea. So what is it that you can do? You can support initiatives by African developers. There's a lot of African developers that are coming up to build AI tools that speak to the context of Africans and understand our context as the people and our realities. You know, we have Abantu AI, we have Masakane. These are all African developers that are creating AI tools tailored to local linguistic and culture needs, right? So it would be good that even as journalists, as people in public offices, we try to look out for some of these AI tools that understand the context of the work that we're trying to do, or the context that we live in as policymakers, as journalists, as technologists. It is important to adopt some of these initiatives, as opposed to going to the proprietary AI tools that are built from only the global south. Secondly, you have a task to spot and challenge harmful AI-generated content and harmful narratives that may misrepresent African culture or language, right? You have a task to employ AI tools. I was able to find Google Translate or DeepL because I know that, for example, Google Translate and DeepL, and I'm not trying to lobby for these tools, but I know that some of them have African languages that are supported, like DeepL has a bit of African languages supported, and Google Translate. So some of these are able to translate content into the indigenous languages. For those that are not able to use, I mean, as a user, it's only right that you probably find a way to advocate for the addition of unsupported languages, right? There's quite a lot of languages on the continent. It would be nice for all these languages to be included. And of course, don't come to me saying that, oh, it's expensive. Yes, it's expensive, but these big tech companies have the money, right? If we talk about the budgets that some of these, the profits that some of these guys are pulling, these are budgets for nations, right? For years. So it's the aspect of it's expensive. I think that's a weak excuse. So there's quite a lot of things that you can do. I'll rush through them. Check if the AI tools support African languages like Swahili, Yoruba, Amharic, and a lot of others. And if not, then advocate for the inclusion. Assess how well the AI tools understand and translate nuanced expressions, idioms, and proverbs unique to the African language. Many of these tools have ratings, where it gives you something and then you rate it. Please be cautious about if you find it misrepresenting. It's important for you to report it or even give comments so that these AI tools can continue to be built. And many other things. But partner with indigenous language experts and local storytellers to train AI models in authentic representation of African cultures, or even advocate for African cultures and narratives to be included in datasets that are used to train some of these AI models. So that's just a bit of about decolonizing AI.